people like Matt Walsh, and even people like Charlie Kirk until the day that he died, people like Steve Saylor, many of the Bronze Age pervert crowd, these people like Raw Egg Nationalist, Lomez, etc. They are really ramping up the nativist rhetoric to sort of compensate for the fact that they will never criticize Israel or the Jews. And let's think about this in terms of systems here. When we talk about whites and Muslims, whites and blacks, whites and Hispanics, we're talking about identity politics. We're talking about the politics of immutable, essential identities. What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be an immigrant? This is the politics of identity. And it's the politics of these immutable, essential characteristics like race, religion, whether we're native or foreign born, what language we speak, all the things that come with being a white American versus a non-white foreigner. And if that's the way we're thinking about politics, and I think that's the way we all are thinking about politics, why then does that never extend to Jews for somebody like Matt Walsh? In other words, we can talk about Muslims bringing Sharia law, and we can all agree that as white Americans, that's undesirable. And we could talk about how Muslims are taking up too much space and too much power in certain cities. Do we want a city to be all Muslim? Do we want to live in a city with a Muslim mayor, health commissioner, police commissioner, the signs are in Arabic script? Of course not. That's the relation between white and Muslim people in America because of mass migration. But why then do the same people that are so eager and so vocal, so incendiary, these people that are the biggest culture warriors, the toughest talkers about Muslims or blacks or immigrants or illegals or Hispanics or Indians, why do those people never talk about Jews? Why do they never talk about the race relations between whites and Jews or Jews and everybody else? In other words, you're willing to say that the mayor of Dearborn is Muslim and the municipal government of Dearborn is too Muslim. But how come you never talk about how America's government is too Jewish? Why are you willing to talk about one but not the other? You talk about our black crime problem. You talk about the Muslim Dearborn problem. You talk about the Hispanic illegal immigrant problem. And by the way, those are all problems. That's all legitimate. But you never talk about the Jewish running media, academia, Hollywood, government, finance problem. You're willing to list all the Muslim sounding names and their call to prayer in Dearborn. Why don't you say the same thing about all the Jews in Surfside, Florida? Or how about all the Jews in Brooklyn, New York? Or how about all the Hasidic Jews that have basically created colonies in New Jersey, all over New York, in LA, in South Florida? How about, forgive me, how about all the Jewish names in Hollywood, in the financial industry? How about the 5 out of 8 Ivy League universities that have Jewish presidents? How about the endless talk about the Holocaust and playing the shofar and hearing the Torah and the Talmud and all this? We never hear that from Matt Walsh. We never hear that from all these conservatives. Why not?
Like, I don't understand how some people just don't talk about this kinds of things. I mean, no matter how much you kind of kiss ass, they will never accept you. You should kind of like stick to your own group as they are sticking to theirs. They always will have like this ultra weird in, everybody else that is the out. They're very like tribal because you know their religion, their customs, and their everything is baked into them to help each other out. So if a Jewish guy gains power, of course he's gonna hire another Jewish guy, and it just keeps it just keeps going and going and going, and suddenly, if there is some kind of institution, there's just boom, there's only Jewish people there. It is what it is, and people need to accept that. every other group is splintered. There's so much like whites against whites. I mean, white people, I mean, we're the most like we're the worst ones off, is because like Western white women, they don't even listen to the men anymore. They are the men now. They don't get children. There's less and less white people of the world's population, and that is kind of what they want in a way. And people kind of refuse to accept that a lot of the bad things happening, for example, with the war in Gaza and all of that, people like to imagine that Israelis or the Jews, they kind of like, oh no, we don't want it to happen. Actually, a lot. What is it, like 80% of like people living in Israel, they're like kind of okay with it. They're like, does that make sense? And when I say that, you may not believe me, but it's that's what's happening. And in for example, in Israel, the people who kind of run the stuff, I don't know much about it, but people who run it all, like 99 out of 100 people are fully on board to doing the genocide and all of that to Palestinians. And people don't talk about that.
And I'm just getting really sick and tired of conservatives that pretend to be, and what they're doing is compensating, pretending to.
Yeah, they're like, no, I won't touch this issue, but I'll go extra hard on the Muslim problem, on the Islam problem, on the, woman or black person problem. Like, they'll do that, but they won't talk about the Jews.
To be based by punching down against black people with no agency, illegal immigrants with no legal standing, Muslims who are foreign in every sense of the word, but are absolutely terrified and cowardly when it comes to confronting Jewish power. And that would be punching up. And it's not to say that we don't have a problem with black crime. It's not to say that we don't have a problem with illegal Hispanics or others for that matter. It's not to say we don't have a problem with Indians on work visas. It's not to say we don't have a problem with this Muslim invasion of certain specific communities and townships. But when you look at the overarching problem, when you look at the overarching...
Yeah, the kind of like, I guess the more holistic issue to look at is, the Jewish problem.
Foreign influence in America, it's not coming from any of these localized groups. It's not coming from any of these low agency third world groups. It's coming from the transnational Jewish syndicate, which is really in the big leagues. And so, for somebody like Matt Walsh, hey man, just answer the question. I tweeted at him today. You're willing to say all the Muslim names in Dearborn. On some level, who gives a fuck? It's Dearborn, Michigan. Jews run America. Hello? And I'm not saying, by the way, before anybody jumps in, I'm not saying I'm glad that Dearborn, Michigan is a Muslim colony. I'm not happy about that. But it's Dearborn, Michigan. Yes, Dearborn, Michigan is a colony of Muslims. Washington, D.C., New York City, Los Angeles, Miami are colonies of the Jews. Are you going to talk about that? Because unless and until you're willing or able to talk about all those Jewish names, all those foreign-sounding names with their foreign religion, their foreign desert religion and culture, then don't try to pretend like you're some sort of pro-white advocate. Don't pretend like you're brave or courageous or some kind of culture war, some kind of patriot. You're not a patriot. You are an accommodationist. You work for Ben Shapiro. And by the way, this is the same guy who three weeks ago said, we just need to bring the whole right wing together. We need to unite the right. Unite the right against what? Dearborn, Michigan's mayor? How about uniting the right against the Jewish mothership controlling America? Then we can deal with Dearborn. Then we could deal with Minneapolis. Why don't we start with the ADL, AIPAC, B'nai B'rith, Hillel, the Israeli Foreign Ministry, the fucking U.S. State Department? Why don't we start there? BlackRock, Blackstone. I mean, why don't we start with the actual institutions that have power, which are being influenced by a foreign country or foreign influence? So I saw that tweet today. It is just another reminder that it is as important what someone does not say equally as much as what they are saying. So someone like Matt Walsh goes on Twitter naming the Muslim mayor of Dearborn. Hey, good stuff, Matt. When are you going to talk about the Jewish mayor of America? Hello, his name is Prime Minister Netanyahu.
We have one more clip here.
About Josh Hammer and Mark. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, fuck them. Fuck them. Deeply, seriously, get them the fuck out of our country. I saw Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. Now that Charlie Kirk was
I don't know who that is, but apparently a bunch of things are happening. I haven't been paying attention.
Killed. They got together on their show where they're advocating for Netanyahu and war with Iran and more dead Americans, more dead young white men for Israel. I saw them get together on their show and they said, well, one concern we have about the death of Charlie Kirk is that who is going to keep the gate and prevent filth like Nick Fuentes from taking over? Josh Hammer said, who's going to prevent anti-Semitic filth like Nick Fuentes from taking over? You're the filth. Newsflash, buddy. Hey, Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, you're the filth. You are fucking scum. You are traitors. You do not belong here. You are not American. You're not home. Remember that. Never forget that. You want to talk about this land was promised to us 2,000 years? You ain't there. You're not home. Never forget that. You get a little too comfortable. You're feeling a little too comfortable here talking like that about Americans. This is Josh Hammer, the same guy that said Europeans have Jew hatred in their DNA. That's what Josh Hammer thinks of us. He says Europeans have Jew hatred in their DNA. We're supposed to go and fight their wars, though, and love them and love their country and love everything they're about. They're filth. They're Jew-hating filth. You're filth, pal. You are an alien. You ain't home. Don't forget that for 1 second. It drives me crazy. And, you know, on some level, that's who they are. That's what they've always been. And, you know, I think they should be treated with dignity and they should have rights and everything like that. They should not be allowed to have the privileges to have power over Americans at all. But to the extent that it's sort of like the scorpion and the frog, that's what they do. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they've always done. They're looking out for themselves. Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, they're looking out for themselves. And on some level, you can't really blame them. They're doing what they always do for their own benefit, to advance their own interest, to take their own side. Can you hate them for taking their own side? If you were a Jew and you enjoyed the power that they have and you had the history that they had, I mean, maybe you'd act the same way. What I cannot countenance is a white Catholic American man signing up to work for them. That's what I can't abide. Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, they do what they do. They're doing their thing. But Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles are working for them. You got Christian white men working on their behalf. That's the part that, like, that's a real problem. That's a deep treachery. And no, we can't actually table that topic. You know, Matt Walsh wants to say, let's just table that and let's just get together and we'll defer that disagreement to another day. It's like, you don't understand. You work for Ben Shapiro. We're never going to be able to unite on that basis. You work for an operative of a foreign government. Ben Shapiro goes live every day to advocate for dead white Americans for his country, and he hates us. Do you understand that? I'd almost prefer communist. I'd almost prefer a liberal. Ben Shapiro goes live every single day. More dead white Americans for Israel. And they hate us anyway.
Yeah, and you know, the white population is just gonna, I guess, shrink more and more. Like, we need to get our kind of women under control and start making some babies, man. We can't be like, it can't end like this, man. It can't end like this. Like, we need to come together and you know, have a bunch of white babies, and yeah, make sure we aren't bullied off the world. You know?
Anyway, they think we're Jew haters in our bones because we're so jealous of them. That's what they think about us. They hate us, and they want us to die for them anyway. And you were.
We aren't really, or at least me. Like, I'm not envious. It's always the Jews that are envious in a way. Always like wanting something, always greedy, taking something, whatever, bank, money. It's like people have this idea of like the greedy Jew. You know, even when you look at their religion, it's kind of like, it's not like how do you say it? It's very like narcissistic and shit in a way. And I don't know, I can't really respect a man for following like principles like that. You know, I would much rather follow someone who gives himself up to God and stops being like an envious, conniving, tricker, like dude who tricks people, lying, like negative, hateful. Like, a lot of Jews are just really hateful. Or the Zionists, I should say, they're really like hateful people. And notice how, like, you know, the most Christian are the sweetest and nicest and kindest people is because, you know, principles and morals. But people don't want to talk about these kinds of things, right? And yeah, I mean, I'm no expert on it, but I want to hear some discussions on it. That'd be very interesting.
Work for them. Shapiro is the worst of all of them. He is the worst scum-sucking traitor out of all of them. Him, Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, they are the worst. And you work for them against your own people.
This, what was it? Matt Walsh, he's cooked, apparently. Anyway, boys, I hope you guys enjoyed. I catch you boys on the next one. Take care of yourself.